Now, kleos is that special word that comes from the verb that means to listen, and it is, and it's not an exaggeration, the complete foundation of Homeric epic. That is, having people listen to tales of your deeds is what Homeric epic is. And so when heroes themselves start to think about their kleos, which is usually translated glory, but is perhaps better translated as fame or reputation, which is what your translator Lattimore usually does with it. When heroes think about their own kleos in Homeric epic, the Iliad and the Odyssey, they're not just thinking about whether they're going to be remembered, that is, their fictional character, but they're thinking about what it means to be a character in a Homeric epic. And so it's a kind of, well, here's the fancy term, mise en abîme, which is something, a term that comes to us from painting. You're casting the actual being of the story into the story. And so one great example of that is the oh-so-famous moment at the beginning of Book 9 of the Odyssey when Odysseus is starting to tell his own story. And it goes like this. But now your wish was inclined to ask me about my mournful sufferings, on page 137 if you've got the Lattimore, so that I must mourn and grieve even more. What then shall I recite to you first of all? What leave till later? Many are the sorrows the gods of the sky have given me. Now first I will tell you my name, so that all of you may know me, and I hereafter, escaping the day without pity, be your friend and guest, though the home where I live is far away from you. Okay, stop here. We're going to go one line further, but remember he said the first thing he's going to do is tell them his name. So your name is fundamentally connected to the activity of storytelling. And he says that not only is his name connected to the storytelling, but it's connected to what he's hoping for, which is that I'm going to be your guest, I Odysseus, with you the Phaeacians, and you're going to be my guest, and we're going to build, and this is of crucial importance, a structure of xenia, of guest friendship, an economic structure of gathering wealth as time proceeds. So the kleos of the name is connected to the actual material need for which Odysseus is telling the story. But then he continues. I am Odysseus, son of Laertes, known before all men for the study of crafty designs, and my fame goes up to the heavens. And the word fame is, of course, kleos. And so he begins this whole thing in which he's playing the bard, but also a kind of part better than the bard, with the description of his kleos, saying, okay, that's why this story is here, that's what we're doing. And the bard is thereby reflecting on, well, to put it very broadly, the value of the activity that he's doing, the value of epic storytelling, and how great it can be. Okay, so when we go to games, well, if we find something that looks like kleos, it's a little stranger, because the being of games doesn't depend on this structure of people talking about the heroes in the games and therefore buying more games so much, right? The actual being of Homeric storytelling is a bard is paid in food, mostly, according to the Odyssey at least, to continue telling these stories of heroes. It's not exactly the same way with games because the heroes in games aren't so fundamental to the activity of the making of the game. That is, you have a game developer and you have a game player, but the activity, the gaming, is not kind of the same thing as saying that a hero is really great, a hero gets a new title, which is what we're going to see in Lord of the Rings Online. On the other hand, the fact that a game like Lord of the Rings Online has a non-player character, as we'll see, called the Bard, and that the Bard is in very tight control of something that's absolutely fundamental to the gameplay, we'll see its traits, it says something really important about the participation of games in the epic tradition, and the kind of mismatch between this kleos structure and what's actually going on in the games is going to be a source, I think, of really interesting discussion for us. And also it will lead us on to a unit down the road, the unit called mini-games. Because when we get to the mini-games, we are dealing with that same kind of mise en abîme, putting the means of the story into the story itself. Because when you play a mini-game in a larger game, you are, in a certain sense, reflecting on the activity that you're doing. You're playing a game within the game, just as in the Odyssey, Odysseus' tales of his adventures are stories within the story. So here we are in Middle-earth, and this is my main character, Elrondir. I'm going to ride him on over to Elrond's house, sometimes called the last homely house in Rivendell. And there we're going to go see the bard. There we go. And the reason most players play with them on is so that they can tell who is who, especially with regard to monsters. But in very many games, including this one, you also get extra benefits. For example, here I am Elrondir, Protector of the Shire, which is the title that I have chosen to use. This is my character journal, and here are the titles I can choose. Elrondir, Artisan Scholar, Elrondir, Master Journeyman Scholar, Elrondir, Student of Celebrimbor, because I acquired some ring lore. But the basic idea is, of course, Kleos. That is, this is who I am. Remember that the basic notion of Kleos depends in Epic on the formula, right? So consider the title a kind of formula. But then that gets expanded even further, as you'll see when I go to visit the bard. And he is called the bard. I'm not making that up. But obviously he doesn't do the same thing that a bard in archaic Greece did. Instead, this bard controls your statistics in certain very important ways. All right. You'll also notice, let me change things around here, you'll also notice that I'm riding a very wonderful horse. I actually just got this horse last night for finishing, yes, the epic storyline of Lord of the Rings Online. And so anybody who sees me riding this wonderful horse knows that I have finished the epic, and therefore am, I don't know, uber, to use a gaming term. In any case, I now have to dismount to talk to the bard. Actually, that's the minstrel trainer. I have found the bard. His name is Phileglin. Phileglin, I think, actually is the pronunciation. Not that it matters. And I am going to choose to manage my traits. It said Megovanen, which is a mispronunciation of the standard Elvish greeting. But the more important thing here is that the way that traits work in Lord of the Rings Online, and this is more or less similar to other games, although there are some special innovations in Lord of the Rings Online that are very interesting. In any case, the way this works is there are virtues that I have gained for doing specific deeds throughout the game. Charity, compassion, determination, discipline, fidelity, and honor. These are actually ones I don't have equipped. Isn't that funny? Equipped. The ones I have equipped are idealism, justice, wisdom, empathy, and confidence. Now, anybody who knows this game will notice that I have not been working on my deeds. That is, my statistics that go along with these wonderful abstract concepts of idealism, justice, etc., those are not as high as they should be for somebody who has just finished the epic, and of that I am ashamed. In fact, I would have to say that I'm not lying about that. I am in fact ashamed of the fact that I have not done these deeds, that my Kleos is not greater. And so that is what the bard controls. Now, I find this incredibly interesting because, of course, as we've talked about, Kleos is not the basic mechanic of this game, or really of any game. Whereas Kleos was the basic mechanic of Homeric epic, and yet the concept of Kleos is so powerful that it has found a way into, in fact, the basic mechanics of the game. That is, these are the statistics that control how good I am at what I want to do in the game. And so this version of Kleos, expressed through the Bard of Rivendell, and there are bards all over the game who can kind of switch out your traits for you, and obviously the conceit is that this bard will now tell different stories about you based on the various traits you have. Instead of Elrondir the idealistic, I could be called Elrondir the honorable, and my formulas could change, those formulas being completely controlled by numeric statistics. So although, as I said, the analogy is imperfect, its very imperfection, I think, will lead us into extraordinarily interesting discussions of what's really going on here with Kleos and with the mise en abîme that we see in Homeric epic. And so I invite you to comment on that as we go through the course.